Today, we will analyze and compare SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics to see how they differ from each other. Of course, my videos are not investment advice. My goal is to provide insights through analysis. There are fundamental differences between SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics. SK Hynix has a business structure centered on memory semiconductors, and it has been evaluated as being ahead in HBM recently. Samsung Electronics, on the other hand, includes not only its semiconductor business, which consists of non-memory products, but also more business sectors such as smartphones, displays, and home appliances. Recently, there have been many articles and videos suggesting comprehensive difficulties for the company. Therefore, a simple comparison is challenging, but since the market issue affecting both companies currently revolves around HBM, I will boldly compare the two. First, let's look at the quarterly revenue over the past 5 years. Please note that there is a scale difference between the graphs of the two companies. SK Hynix hit a low point in the first quarter of 2023 and has shown recovery since then. In particular, it saw significant growth in the second quarter of 2024, reaching an all-time high. Because its business is simpler than Samsung Electronics, it tends to have higher volatility. Since Samsung Electronics' revenue grew in the third quarter of 2024, I expect SK Hynix's revenue results to be even better. I'm curious to see the figures that will be announced. It would be good to watch whether it will be above or below the market consensus. Let's also compare the quarterly operating profits. Looking only at the semiconductor business, Samsung Electronics also saw an operating loss of 15 trillion won in 2023, similar to SK Hynix. Since SK Hynix only has the memory business, its losses are more starkly revealed, and it is clear that the losses were significant. However, in the second quarter of 2024, we can see that SK Hynix's operating profit reached about 50% of Samsung Electronics. Considering the difference in scale of their revenues, this can be seen as a fairly good performance. With the performance announcement for the third quarter of 2024 approaching, it will be interesting to see how it turns out. How have the stock prices moved? They initially moved in the same direction, but then SK Hynix rebounded while Samsung Electronics plummeted. This wasn't due to any sudden major issues, but at some point, the market's evaluation of the two companies changed completely. The company that started to decline is facing even harsher assessments, as if anticipated. If we calculate the PER by dividing the net profit of the last 4 quarters by the market capitalization, we observe differences between the two companies. Since performance changes every quarter, please take into account that there may be jumps in the PER calculation. It's not common to view PER over time, but I believe it holds significant meaning. I calculated SK Hynix's PER using the second quarter results only, while I also included estimated results for the third quarter for Samsung Electronics. The result shows that the average PER over 5 years is higher for Samsung Electronics, indicating that the market has valued Samsung Electronics more highly during this time. However, currently, SK Hynix's PER is overwhelmingly higher. Of course, this might be partly due to the losses in 2023 making the PER appear elevated, but the difference is still too large. Is it really possible for such a sudden reversal to occur with nearly a 5-fold difference? It's natural to think that the market is reacting excessively. Now, let's take a look at what the smart foreigners think. This is the correlation between foreign ownership rates and stock prices over the past 30 days. SK Hynix showed a slight decline in foreign ownership before rising again, with a correlation to stock prices of about 0.79. Samsung Electronics has continuously low foreign ownership rates, but the correlation with stock prices is as high as 0.93. Let's summarize. Although it is challenging to make a simple comparison between the two companies, the current market issues surrounding HBM has equally affected them, so we dared to compare. Looking at the PER, which reflects performance, it appears that the two companies are excessively valued differently. From a supply and demand perspective, it's clear that foreigners are primarily driving down Samsung's stock price, while for SK Hynix, it seems that they may not be driving the price up but rather following the rising stock or slightly increasing their stake in SK while reducing their stake in Samsung. This was a brief comparison, and at this point, considering the premise that the two companies cannot differ so drastically, a strategy of going long on Samsung and short on SK Hynix may be meaningful. Again, this is by no means an investment suggestion. Thank you.